النار وأدخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
الحمد لله رب العالمين. شكرا جزيلا Imam Hussein. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a long life. Imam was at the doctor today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him complete shifa. We last week or last session, we dealt with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We said it's the personal name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the name by which the divine being, the creator of this universe, is known by. That is his personal name. The other names, as we said, are descriptive of some of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities and abilities. But when we say Allah, then what we are doing, we are invoking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which encompasses all the other names. And let us make it clear that the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are limitless, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's perfection has no beginning and it has no end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names, therefore, the 99 names that we have been given are only those names that's known to us. But some of the awliya who have gone further, they have been opened up to so many other names, thousands of names, some of the awliya. We won't go into all of that now. I want to just, so that we understand the importance of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a key that will unlock knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a most profound way. And I want to just refer to what we said last week, the last statement which Ibn Arabi made, and I'm not going to go through all of what he said previously, to go through where did I put that now? Yes. It's the last part of what Ibn Arabi said that I want us just to reflect on. Ibn Arabi, may Allah be pleased with him, says that the entire creation only qualifies for existence through the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing in creation exists through its own properties or abilities. It only exists because of the presence of the names. Now, we've gone through some of that, and I don't want to go into things that's going to be too complicated for now. We can refer back to this if and when the time arises, or if there's a question that anyone would like to pose. But what we are going to do for today, inshallah, is we are going to go through the next two names. Sure. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Subhanallah. Two of the great names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, both of these names refer to the quality of mercy. Now, mercy must be understood as something that exists where whoever, and we're talking now at the level of the world now in the dunya. When we talk about mercy, we're talking about someone who is in a position of superiority or strength, who dispenses the mercy to those who are less fortunate. Now, it could be that it could take the form of assisting that person, or it could take the form of forgiving that person. And the name or the word mercy has so many different meanings and understandings. But when we talk about the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not separating the two. We will talk about the difference between the two if there is a need, but we will speak about the general quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Now, when we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, the first thing that we must remember is that everything about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absolutely perfect. Nothing can be added to anything about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor does it reduce. It can't be altered. It can't be changed in any way. It is utter and total perfection. And it's also beginningless and endless, like everything about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, when we talk about this quality of mercy and we say it is perfect, it's beginningless and endless, so is every single thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not when we talk only about Tawheed that we say Allah has no beginning, Allah has no end. Every sifat, every name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no beginning and no end, and is utterly perfect. Anything about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we can remember that, we will repeat it as we go along to reinforce the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is utterly perfect. And therefore, if we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and say that it is perfect in the true sense of the word, then nothing in creation can trigger the mercy. Let me make it clear. Nothing in creation can cause Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be merciful. Now that might sound a bit difficult to understand, because you can think of several examples now. Somebody's sick, or somebody is in poverty or in a crisis. How should we understand that? How should we understand that nothing in creation triggers the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now, I don't want to immediately start off with a question, but I am going to ask, how do we understand that nothing in creation triggers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy to descend wherever it might be needed? Let me just hear if there is a comment or a question on this. And I'm going to pause here and just start off with that, inshallah. The floor is open now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you, Dr. Yunus?
Alhamdulillah. When Dr. Salie mentions the word trigger, already the thought comes to mind that if there's a trigger, that means there's a period of, or a concept of a need to fulfill, which means there's a gap, there's a void. And Allah is in need of nothing. So if it needs to happen for us in order to react, either make a choice and do something. So we are in need of that trigger in order for something to happen. For example, it starts raining, so we take out our umbrella as a means of shelter. So Allah is in need of nothing in order for His names and attributes to exist or come into effect.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you then. So now we're talking about Allah's name of being the All-Merciful. You are completely healthy now. You have no need now to turn to Allah, or so you think. So you're going to get sick tomorrow. You're only going to be sick tomorrow, and you're going to turn to Allah tomorrow. How should we understand that nothing that happens in creation triggers the mercy? Because clearly, if that is the case, then would that not mean that your condition here on earth, or your plea or dua, triggers the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You don't have to answer yourself. Anyone else can answer. Let's just hear.
Salie,
Yes.
We are always in need of the mercy of Allah. You know, there's never a moment when we're not in need of the mercy of Allah. And we make dua every day for health, for wealth, for different things we're asking for. Isn't this isn't this the reason the mercy descends on us?
Yes. Okay. Now, one of the things that I was hoping that somebody would immediately say, otherwise we haven't ingrained this in our thinking from what we've done previously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not affected by time. Allah is the creator of time. Allah is never subject to time, and time can never be used to apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please remember this. When you think about Allah, never think about time. Never. So that is the first point. That time can never be used, because time would signify waiting. And waiting is a sign of need. And Allah is never in need. That point is well taken. But what we must also understand, that it's not only time that is never applicable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that comes from creation can never trigger a response from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This point you're going to find is going to come up so many times. It's going to come up often in your thinking, and it's an area where we often make a mistake. That nothing that emanates or that happens in creation, whatever form it takes, can ever trigger a response from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that would mean, logically, it would mean that Allah is responding to whatever is happening in creation, and creation triggers things from Allah. So Allah is responding to everything that is happening out there. The way we should understand this is that whatever Allah's response is to whatever happens in creation, not only does Allah know that beforehand, like we've discussed when we were discussing the question of predestination, but Allah has already responded before we were even born to whatever's going to happen beforehand. So the mercy doesn't wait for something to happen for it to be triggered. I hope that point is clear, and that the issue about time and things coming from creation will never ever trigger a response from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second point is to make is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, therefore, because of that point that we've just made, Allah is not subject to time. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever present. There's never a point where the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't descend in total and in total perfection to the entire creation. It's not something that is there and then 1 minute is not there. Because if it was that there were times when the mercy was not there, and there were other times when the mercy was there, or was not as much mercy or less mercy, then it means at that point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not perfect, because the mercy didn't descend in full. Like all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities and abilities, the mercy in the way that it relates to creation is never absent, and it is never less than the total and utter perfect mercy. Now, the thing that I think we should also keep in mind, that Allah's mercy does not apply only where there's need. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy applies whether there is a need that we are aware of or even not aware of. Allah's mercy applies. It doesn't, there's not a criteria that determines whether the mercy is applicable or not applicable at any point. And it's a point that we often question. We say, yeah, but those people are not even Muslim, or they sinners, and yet they have this and they have that. And you compare their conditions with your conditions. Allah's mercy is applied to creation in total, whether we ask for it or whether we don't ask for it. It applies to the good and the bad in the entire creation. Does it mean that if Allah's mercy has descended to give somebody wealth, that that person's, the mercy has now covered that person? No. Allah will give, Allah's mercy is such that Allah will give even where there's abundance. Allah will give you on top of that, whether you ask for it or not. And when we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, it's, we often use sustenance, rizq, or wealth as a criteria, but it's also our health. And often it's only when we become sick that we realize what the great mercy it is that we have. we become neglectful about being thankful about our health. And then of course, there's our time. And I don't want to go further, but those are the things. Now, the scholars and the different people, and there are hundreds of people who have written about this topic, describing the names, and you can go through the reading so that you can get a better feeling of the name. I am not equipped to go much deeper into the actual meaning of the name. What I rather want to concentrate on is to say, now, how do we take our understanding of this great quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how do we emulate? Emulate means to copy or to imitate this divine name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to look at that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us the Khalifas on earth. We are supposed to imitate and be godlike in the way we respond and react to everything and everyone around us. So we must emulate, copy this particular name. The starting point to copy this name is to have a soft heart. If you don't have a soft heart, then you will find it very difficult to make progress along this path. A soft heart is the door that opens the road to the benefit of this name. Now, how do you determine if you have a soft heart? You can not so easily see it in yourself, but you can see it in others. You can easily recognize that person has got a very soft heart. That person, he's got a hard heart. And the way we judge that is normally how people respond to difficulties and hardships and crises in other people's lives. Because mercy is something that is dispensed to somebody else. We're now talking about us as human beings trying to respond and react in the way that the Sifat would want us to actually react and respond to difficulties that surrounds us. Now, we must genuinely feel affected, and you must feel awkward when you come across somebody who's very sick, or somebody who's extremely poor, or somebody who's suffering, or somebody who's in pain. It must do something to you. If it does nothing to you, you better go to the doctor and go for a ECG. So that feeling is the start. The feeling is the start. But is it only human beings? When we talk about mercy, mercy should be applied to whether it's living or not. It should be applied to everything around us, whether it is plant life, animal life, or even just the environment, the pathway, or whatever else. Our attitude towards things in creation must generally be the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of everything would want us to behave on this dunya. But here comes the key, and that is the feeling is a start. It shows your heart is in the right place. But it's much, much more important to actually respond and react to actually bring about relief where you can. Of course, there's different ways, and we've been through the 3 different ways. The one is to recognize that there's a need and to actively do something about it. And if you can't, then the next best thing is to let people know that you associate and you feel with them about their discomfort or their difficulty. And if you're not even able to do that, it's at least to have in your mind or a feeling in your heart, I wish I could do something. So you must behave in a way where at least you react in some kind of way. You can't just have a feeling and say, oh, these people are suffering, but you do nothing about it. It's storming, and we hear it's flooding everywhere. And we see pictures, we're more concerned about what is happening with the water spilling over in Sea Point or Green Point, and send clips to people there about the storms, but we don't even reflect for a minute on what is happening in the townships, where people are actually living in that water and flooded out with small children and babies and sick. And then all their possessions are also damaged in the process. We must do something about how we respond to these things, and we must do it in the correct manner. The other important thing, of course, is we should not be selective how we respond. We can't only say, yeah, but these people are not Muslim. We should give to Muslims first. If you can give to Muslims first, give to Muslims first. But give to Muslim and non-Muslim, like Allah gives mercy. It doesn't matter to whom, whether they're good or bad people. Allah is the one who looks after and dispenses His mercy to everyone, regardless of who they are. Whether they're rich or poor, Muslim or not Muslim, good or bad, sinners or not. And don't say, but they deserve it and they don't deserve it. So, I don't know. I wanted to take a break there before I go on to the next one. And just ask if there's any comment that anyone wish to make about this, even add to it before we move on to the next point.
I was always under the impression that if you are a sinner, Allah can withhold His mercy. So you are saying that Allah's mercy applies whether you are good or bad. It's limitless. Nothing can withhold Allah's mercy.
You will answer your own question, Aisha, if I ask you, is it not a great mercy to be alive, to be able to breathe? If Allah were to withhold His mercy from the sinners, would they exist even? Which means...
Yeah, just breathing is a mercy.
Yeah, but they also go to work and they earn a living, and they come home with a salary, and they can go buy Kentucky and go to the movies and do what they want. And yet they're sinners. So the mercy is what keeps this whole dunya in place. It's Allah's mercy that actually brought us from non-existence into existence. And it's Allah's mercy that still keeps us going. So it's good that you rethink that, so that you see, if you say Allah can withhold His mercy, we might say, well, if that is what Allah does, and I want to imitate Allah, then I won't give to the drunk guy who's coming to my house for food. Allah's mercy encompasses everything and everyone.
In other words, it's like a sin to even consider that Allah can withhold His mercy.
It's a sin to not understand or to acknowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy covers everyone, Muslim or non-Muslim, and that everyone benefits from it, regardless. There is no in between. You do and you don't. Everyone benefits from that mercy.
Subhanallah. Shukran.
Afwan. Any other comment?
Assalamu alaikum, Manie.
Walaikum salam.
Ik wil net vragen, hoe moeten mensen staan dat die Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent as a mercy to the universe?
Well, if we look at, it's just one of the many interpretations. The first one is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the entire universe, it was created from the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the first mercy. Without that, there would have been absolutely nothing in creation. Not even the pen and the preserved tablet would have been created, because the pen and the Lawhil Mahfuz was created from the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the first mercy. The second mercy is, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran to us, not through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but gave us an understanding of the Quran, but each one were given it individually. How would we have been able to live the Quran? It would have been such a almost impossible task to actually get even to the point where you acknowledge the need to be a Muslim, and then to do all the things correctly. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took the Quran and lived it. And through that way that he implemented and lived the Quran, we could see what it is that we need to do under certain circumstances. So that is one of the greatest mercies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to creation, in fact. Subhanallah.
Shukran, Manie.
Afwan. Is there any other comment? If not, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move on. I still get confused with the technology. So please forgive me if I take long to put up the next thing. Now, at a very practical level, what are we doing? We are looking at understanding the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we can become better people. And becoming better people, we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, these things might sound very, very ordinary and almost unimportant. But if we look at, for example, how we respond to the poor, the homeless, and when people come to beg at our homes or at the robots, and not only what we give them, but how we speak to them and what our attitude is towards them, then it's a sad reflection of how far away we are from where we should be. We can't treat people because of their poverty, and as a result of their poverty, they end up on the streets and they behave in a particular way, and we think that gives us the license to treat them the way that we do treat them. Because we're not just rude to them, we swear at them. We do things that we would not do to normal people based on what they appear to be. People who are homeless, and the association with homelessness and beggars is you're a drunk or you're a gangster or whatever. And we think that little bit that we got belongs to us. What a big mistake we make. And I hope in the previous session when we did the Tawheed, and we said, what have we got really? Only choice. Only choice. I can't even lift up my hand like I'm lifting it up now without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willing for me to do that. So we mustn't think that our wealth belongs to us. We assume that it belongs to us, but it doesn't belong to us. It was only left in our trust. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a lot of wealth, and you think you have been favored. Allah's pleased with you. It could be that that wealth could be your biggest test. Because you assume now, because it's been placed in your care, in your trust, that it now belongs to you. Now you claim it for yourself. What a big mistake we make in the process. Whether it's a little or a lot, that sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you, and rizq and wealth that Allah gives you, might have been placed there as a test for you. How much of that doesn't belong, in fact, to that very beggar who's coming to you? So maybe you're not going to give all your wealth to the beggar. I think very few people would do that. But maybe the 2 rand or the 10 rand that he's, when he comes to you, he's coming for his 2 rand or his 10 rand that was placed in your trust, and you turn him away. Allah will be the judge. Allah knows what has been placed in trust for whom. So we must be very careful if we are given, and there's anyone who's in need. Not only the beggar, your neighbor, or somebody that you don't even know. I won't even talk about family. Family is even more important. You should not even wait for them to come and ask. You should be responding out of your own to ensure that when it comes to your family, that their needs are all taken care of. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us anything, make sure that you don't turn away. Imam Ghazali, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jailani, may Allah be pleased with them, they speak a lot about this. Don't turn the beggars away. Don't turn the beggars away. Rather give a little, but don't give nothing. And then, of course, so we give them, so you would have given normally 2 rand, but now you feel generous today, so you give 5 rand. And you say, I gave this guy 5 rand, he didn't even smile. He just shook his head and he walked on to the next person. You expect him to thank you. You should be thanking him. He gave you the opportunity to use that money in the correct way. He's part of the conditions that allowed you to actually give that money. Be thankful to him. Don't turn it the other way around. He's not even thankful more. Tomorrow I won't give him again. I know his face. He didn't even say thank you. Doesn't mean when people are rude, you give to them anyway. I mean, there's obviously other things. But remember, they're doing you a favor by coming to you. They're offering you an opportunity to be good. Be careful how you respond. Be very, very careful how you respond. The other thing is, when you assist people, when they are sick or they are needy, don't make them feel what's the word? Don't make them feel obligated. Don't make them feel that you are superior and they feel inferior the way you give. If you're going to give it with an open heart so that whoever is on the other side doesn't feel indebted, doesn't feel obligated. Give it with a nice open heart and walk away. Don't wait now, okay, I've given now, when are you going to thank me? And you didn't even thank me properly, you just said shukran. You can't expect anything in the return if you've done something good. Because if you give to somebody, whether it is a lot or a little, and what does Imam Ghazali say? Imam Ghazali says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day when you stand there and you say, Allah, I gave so much to so-and-so, that's not added to my deeds there. Allah will say to you, go find it from the person that you did it for. You did it for the thanks. You gave him 10 rand and you expected thanks. And he gave you the thanks. That was your reward. You did it for that purpose. You got your reward. Don't look for your reward by me. So it's not only that you are looking to be thanked by the person that's on the receiving end of it, but it's also your attitude in the way that you do it. Your attitude in the way that you do it should not make people feel small. That is almost as important as how much you give. Because it's better not to give than to insult somebody or to demean them or to look down on them. Let me pause there and hear if there's any comments before I go on to the last part.
Salie, what comes to mind is the prophetic advice of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, along the lines of the same concept. We said, do not turn the beggar away, even if you leave him with a kind word. Even if you're not giving physical wealth, even that kind word of encouragement, the kind word of giving a person hope, lifting their spirits, that in itself is giving as well. It's not only limited.
Alhamdulillah. And how many times do we give to people? For years. And in fact, you tell people about it and you do it with a good heart. And you always give to that same person and you know him by sight and he knows you. He doesn't know your name and you don't know his name or her name. Is it not? What would it take to ask, hello, what's your name? Make the person feel like a person. For years you've been seeing the person and giving with a good heart, but you haven't given of yourself because that person is at that level and you at this level. So this is not my company, I'm giving. That kind attitude and the kind word, just how are you today, how are you feeling, find out. You'll be shocked if you speak to them to find out how many of them have illnesses. They've actually got illnesses, terrible illnesses. And many of them land up on the street because they can't go and work. To just find out, so how are you feeling today? How's your sugar? There's a guy that I know of, for example. He's in a wheelchair. He lost both his legs, amputated above the knee. And he lost 8 fingers or 7.5 fingers. But he's always smiling. And when I ask him, and it's because he's suffering from sugar diabetes. He's always smiling and always happy. And I've grown to speak to him and find out how he is and how his family is and so on. And you can see he values that exchange of kind words as much as the little bit that I'm giving him. Because I know his name, I ask him about his wife and his children and how are you feeling today? And he says, no, my sugar was 28 again. At least it's a bit lower because last month it was 34 or 30 dingas. Then they had to rush me in. You know, you become an acquaintance. Not there's a beggar and there's a person who dispenses charity in a thing. All right, let me do the final slide. There's another aspect that has to do with mercy. And that has to do with forgiving other people. We sit on our muslas, we sit on our own, we raise our hands and we think about the things that we've done that's wrong. And we don't realize, or we ask Allah all the time we ask for forgiveness for this and that, even if it is by just being forgetful to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask. But when it comes to other people, our attitude and the rules that we apply are so different to what we expect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do the worst things and yet we ask Allah to forgive us. When somebody does something small to us, we find all sorts of reasons why we shouldn't forgive. Yeah, but this, yeah, but that. We should forgive people the way we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. It's easier said than done because we are weak, but we must at least try. I think this point Yunus has made that we must always be merciful where we see this pain and suffering. And if we can't bring relief, then we should at least give words of comfort, or maybe advice, or a smile. That is as important as everything else. I just want to conclude on this note before I open up for the last round of comments and questions. And that is to say that generally now on the names, every name has a power and a barakah and a nur which accompanies it. Or let me make that the second part of how I want to conclude. The first part is to say we must develop softer hearts. Don't say you've got a soft heart. Then you say you've reached the end of the line. Have softer hearts. Try and work on increasing your compassion and your mercy and your empathy and your sympathy towards others, whether we're talking about creation in general. So maybe you're great to people, but you're horrible to animals. You will give what you can and help, but you kick the dog. Or you shoot the cat with your pellet gun or with a catapult or whatever. Be kind and generous and have a soft heart to the entire creation. Because it is through that we practice to become the true Khalifas of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this dunya. And when you really try and you make sincere effort, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will lift the veils, not just to give you more knowledge, but to give you more opportunities to follow in that path. Now, on the names itself, I think it's important to, and I'm going to conclude on this, every single name has a power and a barakah that cannot be compared to anything else. There are the hierarchy of names. We shouldn't say, but this name is greater than that name. For our minds, in terms of how we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are greater. But everything that we are talking about, we're only talking about Allah. The names doesn't exist in its own right. The names are not separate from Allah. The names refers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but certain specific qualities about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we must do is take and attach ourselves to one or two of these names and make it your permanent daily companion. Try and understand as much as you can about that particular name. Try and see how to recognize the name in creation. Try and extract how you can implement it in your daily lives. And subhanallah, the veils will be lifted. And for every person, it's a different name. Every person will find it's easier to attach themselves to this name than to that name. And this is not this one formula for everybody, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created every single person differently. Not only with different hearts, but with different minds and different circumstances and different looks and everything. And we, each of us, are going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on our own. There's going to be nobody else. Our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a one-to-one relationship. And it is unique, and nobody else has that unique set of conditions and circumstances that applies to you as it applies to anyone else. So you choose your name, ask Allah to guide you, to give you one of the names. And if you don't want to go that route, then choose a name that will be easy for you. One of the names, the easiest name to start with is Allah. You just start with the name Allah and attach yourself to the name Allah. And when you say Allah, you say Allah, meaning the creator that captures all the names. In that, when you say Allah, it has to have that kind of insight, that feeling, that everything is contained in the way you say Allah. And say it on your own. Don't only say it in front of people. Because sometimes we don't even know whether we're saying it. Like even the way I'm saying it now. Have I said Allah now to impress you? Or did I really want to convey a message? Say that on your own. Say it on your own. Say it with meaning. Say it and cry. Say it with feelings. Because when you cry on your own and nobody knows, crying is the language of the heart, the spiritual heart. We all have an inner dimension and an outer dimension. The outer dimension is what people see. That's important. But the inner dimension is the dimension, the home of the Ruh, and the dimension that connects you to the unseen world. And when you cry, and the heart experiences things that falls on the heart, then the language of the heart is to cry. It manifests itself physically on the outside like crying. I'm talking about true tears. I'm not talking about, I don't know if anyone knows P.W. Botha. In the old days, he was one of the prime ministers of South Africa. Hy het gepraat van krokodiltrane. We're not talking about crocodile tears. We're talking about true, genuine tears that shed out of remembrance, awe, and bewilderment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you feel it inside you. And you don't know, your body doesn't know how to react and respond. Now the names can give you that. It can give you that. Each one must choose their own name. Choose your own name. Ask Allah to guide you. Madad through Sheikh Hazim to assist you, to guide you to a name. So that you can attach yourself to that name and make that name your companion and make a niyyah that you're going to look after the name and ask the name to look after you until you die. And hopefully, inshallah, with that will come progress along this path. Because ultimately, there's two things that work hand in hand. The one assists the other and the other assists the other. The one is true, correct knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't do injustice to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by assigning certain acts or qualities to Him that's not befitting. Oh, it's so wrong. That's why our understanding about this whole thing about time and space, when does it apply to Allah and when does it not apply to Allah, we must get that right. If you get knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, true knowledge, then what happens is that knowledge, true knowledge, translates into improved behavior and conduct. And true and correct behavior and conduct also as an action that you do on your side impacts on the veils being dropped, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving you more knowledge. So more knowledge translates into actions, and actions translates into giving you more knowledge. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. I'd like people to make a few concluding comments or pose whatever questions they may have at this stage.
Shukran, Salie. You've been diving deep today for the pearls right at the bottom at the sea.
Allahu Akbar.
I think, Salie, the main point for us to take away from today's lesson is the fact that the mercy of Allah is all dispensed, it's already there.
Yes.
It's already there. And that our du'as and our actions doesn't trigger the mercy to be dispensed upon us, descend upon us. But what I wanted to say is the saying of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that Allah Ta'ala has 100 mercies and He's only dispensed one in this alam al-dunya, and 99 is keeping for us for the year after. He's only dispensed one of the 100 mercies in this dunya.
Subhanallah.
And 99 is keeping for us for the year after. Also the ayat that says that Allah's mercy precedes His wrath. His mercy precedes His wrath. Alhamdulillah. And also mercy, maybe you haven't given us the difference between Rahman and Rahim. Maybe next time, inshallah. Shukran, Salie.
Before somebody else jumps in, the scholars differ on the understanding. The one say the one is the quality, and the other one say and the Rahman is the quality, and the Rahim is it's the quality in action. Others say Rahman is preserved for the believers, and the Rahim is the general quality that is dispensed to everyone. Or sorry, it's the other way around. So the bottom line of this is not to be able to define it as if you are in an exam. We have to know these things. We have to feel the knowledge so that it can be acted on in the correct way. Because often we make the mistake by sitting and exposed to knowledge, and we don't extract enough of that knowledge that we can actually act on and implement. That to me is the absolute most fundamental thing that we should do. It's stressed by all the scholars, all the people in Tasawwuf. If we look for definitions of what is Tasawwuf, it deals with behavior. Those who are best in conduct have the most Tasawwuf. So it comes back to what we take out of whatever we learn. It's not what we can say we know. It's more about how much you've taken from that which you know to become a better person. And we hope, inshallah, that we will emphasize on those issues and try and look for the things. It's not easy. I mean, we're not going to do all the names. We can only do some of it. Some of it are so deep also that I wouldn't know where to start. But let's get a few of the names that we understand correctly and make that the basis from how we proceed to actually get into this vast ocean of knowledge, inshallah.
Also, Salie, we can, if we want to read up further, Sheikh's books about the names is there.
Yes.
It's on the chat.
Alhamdulillah. And the book that you posted about Imam Ghazali, I use both those books and some other books as well to prepare these sessions that we have here. So it's based on that. But Sheikh's book has an emphasis of the benefits of the names and gives a small dua at the end of each name. We must couple that to this quest for our own personal name or names. Add that to it, and inshallah you will find that there will be tremendous benefit, inshallah.
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 Any other comments or questions? Okay, is there no other questions or comments at this stage? If not, then, and I want to just to hear from you your final point. My next sifat name was going to be the all-hearing. Now we've dealt with this, and I know we've dealt with it as one of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all-hearing. But it's also a name. I dealt with it. Did we deal with the issue of how Allah created the universe on this chat? No way. Anyway, when I dealt with the book, no, that was the radio program that I'm on, where how Allah created the universe and all of that, I dealt with it. Oh, the second part was what goes on in the human body. I use the ear as an example. For me, the first part is very, very scientific. It actually explains in a simple way, very simple way, how the ear works and how it functions. But that is such a marvelous, marvelous example for me that I love that one. But I don't want to overuse that one. I want to be guided whether you think we should do that as the next one, because the one, it's either that one or Al-Hakam, the judge, the arbitrator, the reckoner. Can you just guide me so that I know what I should come with next time?
Salie, I think we should move on to Al-Hakam. Seeing that we have done Sami already as a sifat, you know, there's not going to be much difference between Sami as a sifat and Sami as a name. So let's go into the name Al-Hakam. It's my suggestion.
Inshallah. No, we don't have to have.
You don't have to take my word.
Unless somebody feels strong out there, I think what you are suggesting is correct. Let's hear. Okay, inshallah. We'll go on to the next one, Al-Hakam. I hope we're going to benefit from that, inshallah. Ultimately, let's try, and the take home must be, what can I do to improve my life based on what was said today? What can I do? What can I extract from this? And I hope, inshallah, you'll go and do your homework on this. Go do your homework. Go do your homework. Do your homework. And you'll get your certificate from Allah, not from anyone else. People won't even know that you've done your homework, but you will get the reward and the benefit from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. So we'll ask for somebody to make a closing dua. And Imam Hussein, will you say who's going to make the closing dua?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد. أنك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. ربنا زدنا علما وارزقنا فهما. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.
Shukran jazilan, Imam Hussein. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you good health. Imam Hussein was at the doctor. Not a major complaint. Not necessary for everyone to rush to his home and break the lockdown rules. We wish you well. We wish you well, Imam Hussein, and everyone else. May Allah be pleased with you, and may we all benefit from these names, these wonderful gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us. Shukran to everyone.
Inshallah.
To see you at the next sections, and it's very nice seeing our brother Farid with us. Alhamdulillah, very pleased to see you. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
Waalaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Ik heb het bijna. Alhamdulillah.